I'm going to start. Thank you so much for joining in today. Whether you have joined us live on repeat or in a featured video, I'm glad you tuned in. My name is Amber Jamshed, and today we are going to talk about the reflection we see in the mirror as American, and specifically the reflection of South Asians living in America. Before I jump into introducing my featured guest with you, I want to tell you that all professional women communities like HPWO and DPWO stand in solidarity and support for equality alongside with our Black brothers and sisters. It is no doubt that we all have felt the unrest of the nation, and we all wanting to be part of the solution. My hope is that this commitment of yours towards equality will become give me 1 second. Equality becomes a lifelong purpose like it is ours. And while being part of this conversation, you make an additional commitment towards to embed diversity, inclusion, and equity efforts along with the action to bring reform to our local levels and nation. Listen, it is no denying that America is looking itself into the mirror. And the reflection we see, we are not happy with that. Injustice, lack of accessibility, police brutality, and all that discrimination, career obstacles, these are just examples of some of the systemic racism that America is facing. This is the first time in history that all America, along with the world, is standing together, and they are all together is protesting against this. And we being Americans, we have to face this and we have to solve this problem. It is obvious that our nation has a lot of healing to do. And our hope is that today's segment challenges you to take inventory of your thoughts, feelings, and experiences and focus on how you can be an ally to combat inequality and injustice. Thank you for allowing me to facilitate this conversation. My hope is that today's segment will challenges you to take inventory of your thoughts, feelings, and experiences and focus how you can be an ally to combat inequality and injustice. I would like to introduce my featured and honorable guest to you. I have Ms. Sadhu with me. She is a scholar of religion, literature, and politics. She is a human and women rights activist and mayor of Montgomery Township, New Jersey. Mayor Jaffer has attracted national attention since taking office in 2019 and as a first female Muslim mayor in American history. Welcome on the panel. And then I have another amazing guest on my panel. Everyone know him in Houston, Dr. Shah. Welcome, Dr. Shah. Dr. Shah holds the Barbara and Corbin J. Robertson Junior Chair in Psychiatry and is Executive Vice Chair and Professor of Psychiatry at Baylor College of Medicine, Houston, Texas. He is currently Chair for Mental Health America, Houston. Welcome, both of you. Thank you for joining us for this session with Insight Take with Amber. How are you guys doing?
Doing well. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you so much for giving me your time.
My pleasure.
Thank you for having us.
First of all, I will start with my first question with Dr. Shah. There is a cure for racism. The deep wounds can be healed, but the healing process is intricate, deliberate, and will require involvement from those who have previously remained silent. What is your opinion on that?
So, yeah, racism can be cured, but the biggest problem with racism is that we at times don't understand why there is racism. And we kind of confuse racism between prejudice. They both are bad, by the way.
Right.
Racism usually starts with lack of identity and starts because people have a fear that somebody is going to take something from them. So there is a fear that I may lose a job because of A, B, and C, or some other would get a preference, and that's how the racism starts. So we not only need to acknowledge that racism and the causes of racism, which could be the fear of losing things, and in some ways inferiority complex that you're going to lose something. And once we realize, then we need to omit the biases, and then we can treat it. Treating meaning heal it. The other thing to remember about racism is that a lot of us talk about racism, but not knowing necessarily what is racism. There are so many systematic racism or racist things which happen in the society, in the community, whether it is your work environment, whether it is your school. Look at the fact that when our kids go to school, what are they called? They are called brown. So that's another prejudice or racism in many senses.
I
So
agree.
racism starts from home, from school, from work, and unless and until we take care of all aspects of that, we cannot cure racism. So it has to be a multifactorial effort within society, within people, within our cultures, schools, workplace, and home, and everywhere. So we have to do all of that.
That's right. And especially I think we have to speak about it. It's like, you know, when we don't speak, so we have to tell that this is going on, and we have to raise our voices against it. Then people will know that there is a problem and we need to solve the problem.
In order to solve any problem, the first concept is recognition of the problem. If we
Exactly.
don't even know there is a problem, how can we even do anything about it? So you're right. We need to recognize racism. Not only that, we need to speak about it, and we need to be truthful about it. And again, in our cultures, that's what you mentioned, it starts from home, that we need to teach our family, our kids, like at the dining table, at the dinner table, that these are not things which are likable, which we shouldn't be tolerating. We shouldn't be doing that. And then a lot of systematic bullying happens because of racism, and we can talk about that later.
Yeah, right, right. Okay, my next question is with Ms. Sadaf. There is, as South Asians, how can we help combat this systemic racism in America?
Thank you for that question. I think that the first thing that we have to realize is that racism hurts everyone.
That's true.
A system that creates a hierarchy and puts some people above others is hurtful to everyone, and it's hurtful to us too. And also, I think it's important for us to acknowledge that many of the rights, all the rights that we have in this country, are because of the activism of the Black community in America. That, you know, there was a very strict immigration system in which Asians were not allowed to migrate to the US, and they were not allowed to become citizens. And it was because of the civil rights movement that was changed in the 1950s. So Asians were not allowed to migrate to the US, and they were not allowed to become citizens because of the civil rights movement that was changed. I think maybe if you mute your video, that would probably help.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think that we have to acknowledge what we have gained from the activism of other communities. And many of us, you know, who are immigrants, first, second, third generation immigrants, we have to understand the history of this country, that we kind of became a part of it very recently. And there is a long history there. There's 400 years of history in terms of slavery and the wealth that was created in this country that we all benefit from, that Black Americans have never been paid back for. You know, it was built on their labor. All of the wealth of this country was built on their labor, and they've been systematically and systemically denied access to the benefits of that wealth. So we have to understand that wittingly or unwittingly, we are part of a very problematic system. And so once we acknowledge that, then we can start doing things to work in solidarity with people, try to spread opportunity, not think of ourselves as, not fall into that trap of seeing ourselves as the model minority, because that was created as a way to pit Asian Americans, including South Asians, against Black Americans and Hispanic Americans, that Asians are somehow, you know, superior or something. And that's not, there's nothing inherent in any race that makes them inferior or superior. It's just, we're all equal. We all deserve equal rights, but unfortunately, we don't all start off with the same opportunities, and we need to equalize opportunity in this country for everyone.
Yeah, that's very true, because once the opportunities are equal, then I think everyone can enjoy the same kind of rights, and they can have the same kind of opportunities, they can enjoy that. So my next question is with Dr. Shah. Um, how can we combat the stigmas of our community regarding colorism and caste system values that we are in America? We still are,
Yeah,
I think we are still in the same era, that we still have the same stigma. So what do you think? How should we, where should we start actually to change that?
yeah. Again, I'll go back to the same thing. We need to start from home because what is happening is that we have moved to this great country, and some of us, not all of us, but some of us are still stuck to the same prejudice which we even had in our own country of origin, whether it is Pakistan or India or so forth. So we have still those prejudices, whether you are from that province or this caste or that caste. And all of that makes racism even more difficult to treat. So if we delete that prejudice from our own self, and if we first take the first step at home, we can certainly take care of this racism which is in our society. So, for example, what we need to do is our religion teaches us that we are all the same, we are all one, and there is no caste system, there is no ethnicity or anything like that. We are all the same. When will we start believing that? When will we start believing that a person from this province is better or worse than the person from other province? When will we believe that this regional language is better than the other regional language? When will we believe in the caste system, that it doesn't exist? When will we believe that Sayyids can marry non-Sayyids and all those things? So if we start this from home, we can talk about racism at a bigger scale, because what kids see at home, that's how it goes further. Who is the role model for kids? Parents. If they're not going to
Right.
see it in their parents, it is going to go on, and they will see that. And other thing, you may or may not have seen this, that one of the West Indian cricketer who was in India, I think it was Darren Sammy, he said that when he was in India, everybody was calling him Kalia, Kalia.
Yeah.
That is racism. And he realized now after 5 years, because they use those terms, I think Aziz Warsi or Aziz Ahmad used that term in a comedy thing. But these are simple examples of racism. We do it at home, calling them Kala or Kalia. We shouldn't be doing that, because this is how we can end racism if we keep everything equal, if we don't even use those slangs and slurs at home.
And I think Dr. Shah, you will agree with me at this point that our it's mostly in our generation. The new generation, our kids are probably, they even we speak a little small word like kala or kalia, they right away tell mommy or daddy this is not the right way to say, or this is not to call anyone. They, I feel them, they are in much better position than us. What do you
If
think?
you think about it, it is a generational thing, absolutely. People who were born before the 1960s have more racism in them, more than likely, than people who were born in the 60s, perhaps me or so. And then the new generation who were born in the 90s usually don't have that. Why? Because their peers, they talk about it, they talk about the rights more, all those things. So you don't see them in them, but you see it otherwise. And those are the reasons that racism continues. But what do we learn from our teenagers? We need to learn this from our teenagers, that these values which they are portraying to us, we need to adopt also. Because again,
Exactly.
even if we don't want to adopt it for any other reason, we can adopt it for our religion. Religion teaches the same thing. Why did we move to America? We moved to America because of this same reason, that this is a country of immigrants, and this country respects all religions, all cultures, all ethnicities, and everybody from anywhere. So the sole thing that we are in America should tell us that we should be completely against racism.
Yeah, that's true. So I think the point is that I think our generation needs to be focusing more on this point, that we need to step back and learn few things that our kids are already practicing. I think in their school, they don't care like it's from which race the kids are. They just mingle and mix. They just play with them, and then they just treat them equally, I think, and which is really great. I really appreciate this thing in my kids, or I think all of the kids are here. They have the same kind of thing. So let's move to the next question we have for Ms. Sadaf. Many times we see communities like South Asian community that stay neutral during time of divide. What message do you have for them? Like when there is any problem, we don't say anything, and we don't even negate anything, but we just stay there. Oh, what action should be at that time that we really need to take a step at that time? What do you think?
Well, you always have to stand up. Inaction is the same as saying that what's happening is okay. And
But you have
so it's,
probably seen that the South Asian communities, they probably think, I think, twice or many times before they speak anything, because they think that we are in America and we need to think twice before saying anything that gonna affect our immigration or our stand or anything like
right.
that. You think that? Do you agree with me at this point?
Well, I mean, I think it's good to be thoughtful. I don't think that it's good to just react right away, because you also see people who react right away saying like, who are these people destroying things and why are they destroying stores and blah blah blah. So
That is, I
it's
think,
always
totally
it's always
different
it's always better to just think a little bit, do some research into what's going on. But I think that our community is becoming more educated on the history of racism that the Black community has faced, why it is that they've been systemically denied opportunities, why is it that there is such a wealth gap. I mean, I think that the studies have shown that the average wealth of a white family is $170,000 or $117,000, and the Black family is $17,000. So think about that, 10 times more wealth. So how can you even think that they're going to have equal opportunities in this country? So we have to educate ourselves. I would advocate definitely standing in solidarity with the Black community. I think it's always important to stand for those people who are being oppressed, no matter where they are, whether it's in the US, it's in another country, it's in our home countries.
It's basically standing for the human rights. It
Right,
doesn't matter.
exactly. Standing for justice and the right thing and equality is always important.
I would like to have Mr. Shah's comment on this.
Yeah, just to add on that, we have to first also realize why our communities don't talk about social injustice.
Exactly.
And the reason for that, a lot of time is that, like you said yourself, some of them are scared of their immigrant status. Some of them are already bullied that if they do A, B, and C, their status can be in jeopardy, right? So not only we need to talk about the social injustice, but we need to also talk about this racial bullying, which happens a lot. This is a common phenomenon, which happens a lot, that if somebody is immigrant, somebody may bully them based on their immigrant status. We need to talk about all kinds of injustices, whether it is social injustice, whether it is bullying because of that, and we need to stand with everybody and anybody who has been victimized. Right now we're talking about Blacks, but even if it happens to any other ethnicity or any other, we need to. Why? Because if we don't step up, if we are in need, nobody is going to step up. And
that's how I take it. If I'm hurt and nobody can feel the pain, I can assume the same. Like if I'm not feeling the pain, or other, nobody can feel my pain. So it's like being human, being sensitive to the issues, and being vocal to the issues. Sometimes we have to speak, we have to raise voice, so other people can listen, other people can join us with this. So that's why, especially if you look at the situation right now in the country, I think this is a right time. We have to speak. Everyone has to speak, and it's against humanity. Whatever was done, it is not related to any religion, anything, but straightly related to the humanity. So violation of the humanity, so human rights. So let's move to our next question. That gonna be with Mr. Shah. How hate and racism impacting us psychologically? I think that I would like to ask Mr.
yeah.
Shah.
So if you think about racism is truly a psychological trait. It is sort of a defense mechanism for people who feel insecure, for people who feel anxiety, and it can take many forms. But truly, if you think about it, it starts as a psychological trait because of insecurity, because of anxieties. Now, if you dissect that further, you can certainly look into why people are insecure, why there is this anxiety that somebody is going to steal things from them. There is a feeling that, oh, if there is a certain amount of food on the table, and if I don't separate based on this racial theme, I may not get enough. Our goal should be to tell everybody would get enough. Why? Because there is enough food on the table, and that's what we need to delete. So it is psychological, yes, but it impacts people psychologically tremendously. So how does it impact people psychologically tremendously? So if you are a victim of racism, and if you see this happening, what will happen to people is they will develop PTSD, they will develop depression, they will develop hatred towards other people. That's how the hate crimes and other things start also. So we have to stop that at the beginning, and the beginning is from, we discussed the numerous ways, we have to stop that at the beginning. Now, if we see somebody is exhibiting some sort of racism, what do we need to do? So we can do a lot of things. We can, first of all, it is never a good idea to confront that person at that particular point. We need to react calmly. We need to be kind with that person at that particular point, and maybe not even talk to that person at that time. If you feel that it is going to the point that you need to call the police, maybe you need to document things. You need to control your initial emotions. We know that the first initial emotions are usually not the right ones. So we need to control that. Um, Again, not react at that time and try to educate. And if you feel you cannot educate, maybe a neutral person can educate. That is the reason these days in every institution, every school, and a lot of organizations, they're talking about cultural diversity, they're talking about racism, they're talking about social injustice. These are the classes which needs to be done almost every year, because people tend to forget. And if we don't listen to that, we cannot take care of that.
Yeah, and I think it's a constant reminder, that we have to fight against. It's like a constantly should be going into the minds to combat this one. Okay, let's move to the other question that's going to be for Ms. Sadav. Can you talk about the American dream, what it means to you, and how we can work towards this value for all Americans?
Well, I think that the American dream, it's an aspiration that people can live their lives the way that they choose, that they can accomplish things if they put their mind to it. And those values are very important. I think it's also important to acknowledge that the dream has not been fulfilled, has not been really available to everyone. And so it's something to work towards. I think it's very important to have goals and ideals. I get worried when people say, well, it doesn't exist, it's never going to exist, and it never has existed, because I think that we need something to work towards, and I think it's a worthy goal. And we've seen successively things getting better in this country. I mean, if you think about it, there really was no reason to abolish slavery. I mean, people were making so much money off of the labor of their slaves in this country, but eventually we did abolish slavery because of the efforts and the work of so many people. And, the civil rights movement, as I said, people from Asia could not come to this country very easily, and they couldn't become citizens. And now we can, so many of us are, and are in different roles, even in elected office, for example. So I think it's about the making the playing field more equal, allowing opportunity to people. But I also think that we need to think beyond America. What are our policies doing in other countries? Are we really allowing people to live out their dreams in other countries? Or is it that we're just constantly only worrying about benefits for ourselves? Mm-hmm. So this is why, you see protests against anti-Black racism happening all over the world, even where they don't have Black populations very much.
Yeah, so, I think this is the first time that everyone is together, everyone is standing against this. And now is the time they realize that if we really want to abolish this, if we really want to get rid of this, we have to stand together in solidarity.
Yes.
Before that, it was just that group of people who were into the protest, like from only that race. But now you have seen South Asians, all from all races, people were together. Even I think this was I was really surprised in this situation when there is a COVID-19, and still you see in Houston there were like 60,000 people in the protest. This is like, you can't imagine. The people were not scared of their lives. The people were not scared of the disease. They were there to support those people, and which is amazing. I think this is all because of the education. This is all because of the social media as well. I will give credit to that too, because people see that whenever there is change need to be happen, they have to speak and they have to raise their voices if they really need to change that thing. So I want your point too, Mr. Shah, on this question, like the values and being American, you can add something to it too, please.
I think Sadaf said everything which is right. So, of course, American dream is the dream of prosperity. It is the dream of equality. It is the
Right.
dream of respect with each other. And it is the dream that there is no prejudice and there is no racism, actually. That is the American dream. Why do we move to this country? This is the greatest country in the world. We move to this country because we want equality. We like equality. We like prosperity. We like our dreams to be
We
met
have
without
freedom of
prejudice,
speech.
without any hindrances. So that is it. And Mayor Sadaf raised a very good point that while we propagate equality, social justice, and talk about social injustice in this country, how can we forget about social injustice anywhere else in the world? Social injustice in America is the same as social injustice in any other country. I don't want to name any country, but there are so many countries where it is happening. So if we feel that social injustice is wrong, then we need to talk about social injustice everywhere in the world. We cannot just limit it to New York or New Jersey or Texas or America or Canada. It has to be everywhere. And that is something which sometimes, and I'm not going to go into politics because I'm not a politician, but that is something, perhaps she can say more openly than not, that is something we feel sometimes America has missed. Because we talk about social injustice in our country, maybe not necessarily all over the world or selected parts of the world. But that's a separate debate. That's not a debate.
That's a very important issue, I think. But this could be the first step, raising our voices, and then people can see that wherever it is happening around the world, it should be treated equally. It's not like if it's happening in America that we should stand, but if even it's happening in Kashmir or any other places, we need to, and our community, I think this is one big thing for them too, to think about, that if these races can stood out, why we can't be united, and why we can raise our voices against the injustice and the violation of human rights which is going on the Muslims and on the other people around the world. So the next thing I would like to, we have a lot of young leaders and students with us in this organization. So I would like, if you want to add up something for them, your points for them, please do go ahead and share your thoughts for them, for the young professionals and for the youth, any special message for them. I need an answer for both, from both of you. Yeah, go ahead.
You want me to start or you want to start?
I'll go ahead.
Sure.
So I would say that I think that one of the most important things I think that there's a balance between only caring about your own life and not thinking about all the injustice out there. I think that that's wrong, because you're ignoring the fact that by refusing to participate, you're actually allowing injustice to continue. So that, I think you need to step out of your own lives and make sure that you are trying to work to help other people. But I also think that sometimes when people get very passionate and they get very involved, then they become cynical and they're like, everything is terrible, society's never going to get better, and politics is all horrible, and I'm just going to disengage. So I would say don't be so optimistic that you don't think there's anything wrong, but also don't be so pessimistic that you become cynical. And I can say as an elected official that there are a lot of good elected officials out there who are trying to do the right thing. There are a lot of ways to get involved. You can accomplish a lot in our democratic system. Exactly. And you need to hold your elected officials accountable to representing your values and your goals. So if you have things happening in your city or in your county or your state or your country that you don't like, that's not in line with your values, you should call up your elected officials and you should say, I don't think this is right. You need to do something different. You should make appointments with them. I went to a seminar, I was participating in a program at ISNA, and they said that, American Muslims are some of the least, they make the least demands of their elected officials. They don't even call them and say, hey, this is wrong. I don't like this. Why are you doing this? Don't do this in my name. So that's the very first step. I mean, complaining and talking and whatever on social media is fine. That is educational. It's good. But if you really want to make a difference, I would say start calling your elected officials, make appointments with them, tell them what you believe, and then, start supporting candidates who have the same values as you, and even think about running yourself, because then you can make those decisions based on your values, based on what's right, based on spreading opportunity and equality to everyone. So that's what I would say.
Yeah, I totally agree that's right.
I would agree to everything Mayor Sadaf said, but I would add that not only what she said is absolutely we need to do, but the basic thing, why do we don't vote? Why do we not vote? We all need to go out and vote. We all need to volunteer. Our population, if you talk about the South Asians and teenagers, how much do we volunteer? We don't. We need to volunteer more. We need to vote more. Also, as a teenager, as a young population, we can stop bullying. So we would see systemic bullying in schools and colleges. We see it everywhere. Examples of that is you see somebody calling a racist name. Can we not stop them if it's your friend? You see somebody insulting somebody. I gave some examples earlier. Why cannot we stop it? You see somebody damaging or writing a racial graffiti. Can you not stop it? We see people being treated differently based on the race. Why cannot we stop it? At least talk to our family, our friends. There are ways, things we can do which will impact. We sometimes laugh on racist jokes. Why do we do that? That's also supporting racism. So we don't need to do that. So if we walk away when somebody is doing any of these things, this is going to stop racism also. Even if you see your coach or your teacher or somebody doing that, if you cannot complain about that or do anything, at least you need to walk away so that it is not supported. We need to do these things while being safe. Again, the purpose is not to confront people, but we should stand up, and sometimes even quietly standing up is better than not standing up.
That's true, because I think when we don't speak, it shows that we are agreeing to that point.
That shows that you have implied consent and you are agreeing to what is being said. So we need to at least quietly stand up and register a quiet protest, if not anything else.
That's true. That's true. And I like that point you said, that even if we can't do anything, at least walk away from the situation to tell them that you didn't like that one, whatever was shared or whatever was said. So this is a very important point. I like, especially sometimes you are in a situation you can't do anything. You can raise your voice, you cannot do anything, but at least you just can walk away. So that will show that you didn't like that thing and you are not supporting that action. There is one last question that is left, that for first generation Americans that have not established their voting rights, like non-citizens, what they can do to help combat systemic racism. Ms. Adav, you can go ahead, please.
I would say, you can join different organizations that are doing education. I think, frankly, we need a lot of education within our immigrant community about American history and the complexity of it and the systemic racism that exists. So volunteer within your community to do educational programs. You can always campaign for people, no matter what whether you're a citizen or not. You can help candidates get elected, even if you yourself cannot run for office or vote. And I would say just be an upstander, right? Like, don't be a bystander. If you hear something wrong, if you see something being done that's wrong, stop and say, this is not okay. You need to change your behavior. You need to stop speaking in this racist manner. So I think, and then think about making financial contributions to help support the Black community. Specifically, if it's about anti-Black racism, whether they're scholarship funds, whether they are funds to help with housing, you should support things like affordable housing initiatives and fair schooling and funding for schools all throughout the states that is not just based on property taxes. I mean, there's so many different ways in which wealthy Americans are separated from poorer Americans, and that oftentimes maps on along to race. So I recently participated in an event in Newark, New Jersey, for Black Lives Matter that was organized by the Muslim community. And a lot of the Black speakers were saying it's good to see lots of members of the immigrant Muslim community here. What we need from you is to invest in our community. Make sure that you are giving us supporting our businesses, supporting our initiatives, supporting scholarship funds and all of that stuff. And frankly, things like affirmative action that a lot of Asian Americans say, like, oh, it's unfair that there are policies in place to try to help Black Americans and Hispanic Americans get into educational institutions. And that is another one of those times when people pit the Asian American community against the Black and Hispanic communities. And we need to say, no, this is all a process of trying to make everything more just and fair. And that's good for everyone. So I think those are tough things, tough pills for some of us to swallow. And I think getting over that narrative that, oh, if we could do it, why can't they do it? It's because there's a whole other history of trauma and systemic racism that they face that we don't face. So we need to acknowledge even how privileged we are. I think that that's definitely something that we need to do.
Thank you so much. And Dr. Shah, would you like to add anything to
Sure.
the question?
I think we need to do few things in that. First is we have to recognize the biases. I mean, we know that biases exist, some known, some implicit, some without. We need to know that. So we have to recognize that, number one. There's no option not to recognize that. Then we need to talk about diversity. We need to talk about social injustices. We need to talk about why it is important, because we have ignored discussion about diversity. We have ignored discussion about social injustice for a long time. It's no option anymore. That is not an option anymore. Then we have to respect all the religions, all the cultures ongoing, because if we don't respect, what are our peers and families and friends going to see? So we have to do that, because it starts from home. Everything starts from home. Also, what we need to do is we need to commit ourselves to change. So how can we commit ourselves to change? For example, if there is a protest and we go ourselves, that is committing ourselves not only to change, but to participate in change. So we need to do all those things. And lastly, I would also like to mention something for the viewers, which is basically what we call it as 8 R's of racism. And we need to talk about the 8 R's of racism, which is extremely important. So the first is respect. Of course, respect is very needed. Second is reflect. Third is resign. So respect, reflect, resign, and then research and relearn, and then reset and reboot. So if we do all these 8 R's of racism, which is important, like respect, reflect, resign, research, relearn, reset, and reboot, we can make a difference and we can change.
That's true. Thank you so much. So at the end, I would like to thank you both for your time and for your informative session, and I will sum up with Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Quote that the time is always right to do right. Racism and hate hurts everyone. It's not just us. And the point is, when racism raises its ugly head and the silence becomes toxic. And and our empathy and our silence is like interpreted to total acceptance. And to conclude our session,